In this weekend's vintage RCQ, there was one storyline that stuck out from the rest. An old favorite had an extremely powerful weekend. Welcome back, vintage gamers, to the Sunday after the vintage RCQ on Magic Online. 111 players playing for regional championship spots. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to play in, record, or do anything with this event as they last minute changed the date on me and left me with conflicting obligations. That being said, I have done all the data for the weekend and a very interesting storyline has emerged. Sphere Shops is back and put up incredible numbers. It's really wild to look at. If you take a quick look here, this is your breakdown for the entire weekend. So 5 events, 4 challenges, and an RCQ on Magic Online. The most played deck was almost 80 copies of Blue-Black Lurrus, followed by Initiative and then Jewel. But then at the 4th most played, tied together, Sphere Shops and Esper Lurrus Control. And if you look at this data, the highest win rate among decks that were played to a substantial degree is in fact Sphere Shops. So Sphere Shops had a almost 58% win rate this weekend over 5 events. That's not shabby. So why is this deck suddenly reappearing? Let's take a quick peek at what we're looking at here. Nothing out of the ordinary. This is going to be a Golos Sphere Shops deck, more of a prison-oriented deck looking to loop Wastelands with Crucible, turn off Moxen with Null Rod. It does, of course, play Patchwork Automaton as a efficient beater to close the game out, and is also choosing to play some Stone Coil Serpents, very likely for the protection from multicolored Reach and Trample that line this card very well up into cards like Psychic Frog. But besides that, you're looking at a pretty stock standard. We got the 2 Ghost Quarters to go with our Golos. We have Nettle Cyst here, so we have a pretty aggressive beatdown package of Patchwork, Nettle Cyst, and Stone Coil Serpent to go combine with our tutoring package of Golos and our restrictive package here with Null Rod and Crucible. So where did this deck come from? This deck has had an under 50% win rate for the entirety of the post-Saga restriction. It is one of the decks that got hit the hardest by only being allowed to play 1 Saga and 1 Vexing Bubble. This deck was on the rise at the end of the Saga metagame, as it was one of the single best answers into the Lurrus Saga deck. That kind of proliferates into this format because it actually turns out that this deck might be an answer to Lurrus Control. So if we go quickly look at what did this deck play against and how did it do on the last weekend. Now, this is just the 5 events. This is no kind of conclusive data. What you can see here is the 95% confidence interval. The highs and lows here are, it's 14% difference. So these are not the true win rates by any means. What I want to show you is what did they play against and who were they winning against. So if you look here at the Sphere Shops data, you can see that there were 34 matchups versus Blue-Black Lurrus Control, where the Sphere Shops players won 62% of the matches. You have some further down here. You have Esper at 12 matches, 75% win rate. Doomsday, 83% win rate at 12 matches. So that's where you're seeing the deck pick up a bunch of wins. You're seeing it pick up a bunch of wins against the 2 Lurrus Control decks and the Doomsday deck. And if you remember, going back to here, you have Blue-Black Lurrus Control as by far the most played deck in the field. You have Esper Lurrus Control played just as much as Sphere Shops, and Doomsday played to a pretty significant degree as well. So these are all very highly played decks. Now, where was the Sphere Shops deck struggling? Well, it was struggling against Jewel. Definitely didn't have a winning percentage against Jewel, or Dredge, or Initiative, which makes this a very perplexing topic because Jewel, Dredge, and Initiative are some of the jewels of the format right now. Whether or not they're winning, I guess it can't really be Jewels if they're not winning. They are the most played decks in the format right now. If you're looking Initiative, Jewel, and Dredge, that's going to be your 2, your 3, and your 5. 2, your 3, and your 6. So like these are decks that are being played to a substantial degree. That being said, if you add Initiative and Jewel together, it's the same amount as Blue-Black Lurrus Control. So when you start to combine the good matchups with the bad matchups, do you end up playing against enough good matchups to outweigh the bad matchups? And then again, some of these bad matchups didn't do so poorly. Like 45% against Jewel is nothing compared to going 60% against Blue-Black, or going 80% against Doomsday, or 75% against Lurrus. Now again, these are not like the true win rates by any means. The true win rate is 95% likely to be between 76 and 45%. So it could even be a losing matchup. But just looking at this weekend, this is what the Sphere Shops decks played against, and this is what they succeeded against. So we're gonna put that to test. We're gonna play a league and see what we pair up against and see how those decks feel. Of course, I mean, I think it would be my due diligence here to show you what the Sphere Shop deck looks like since the Saga restriction, and it tells a very different story. But similar trends. You see down here, you have Initiative and Jewel at extremely poor win rates, 37 and 40. You can be confident that these are not winning matchups based on this confidence interval here. And then you can see Doomsday is no longer winning at this point. And then once you start getting over here, even the Lurrus control deck, you're only looking at a 50% win rate. The Dredge matchup does appear to be winning over here, and that would make sense based on my experience with this deck in the past. This deck is one of the best decks against Dredge, so it's surprising it had a bad weekend against Dredge, but that's why you can't, focus in on those small data size numbers. But yeah, so it looks like it's possible that Lurrus control is either a reasonable matchup or a slightly favored matchup. And in the long term, maybe as this deck progresses, like it's probably the case that these 4 Stonecoil Serpents are not new innovations per se, but recent re-additions to the stock list. So we're going to take some of this data and put it to the test and try to get a feel for things. A lot of times data is helpful, but feeling is very important, especially when talking to people who play the format a lot, who have lots and lots of reps with these decks. I can tell you that I would typically feel pretty happy about playing this style of deck, especially into blue-black Lurrus control, which is not putting up close to the number of hateful pieces in its sideboard that it used to, and which makes sense because this deck had fallen off. You're seeing a lot less Hurkyl's Recalls and those kind of all powerful energy flux style cards that are very good against this deck. It's not worth justifying the sideboard slots if this deck isn't going to see a significant amount of play. That might change coming into next week when you see a target on this deck's back, considering it was the 4th most played deck. People are going to, again, have to adjust their sideboard. And there's only so many sideboard slots you can play in Vintage. You can't address all of these extremely powerful, hyper-specific decks that require very specific cards to beat. So I'm going to play a nice Sphere Shops League here, see what we can do in this Vintage League. Round 1 coming right at you. The legendary NYSE Open returns to Long Island in New York. This 9th installment will be a 15 proxy, $500 entry fee tournament where the top 8 will return home with 8 pieces of real unlimited power. Black Lotus, Ancestral Recall, Time Walk, and all 5 Moxens will be part of this celebration of Vintage. At 100 players, there'll be an additional wacky draft with classic booster packs from Ice Age to Onslaught, the NYC trophy, Karn altars, $1,000 in giveaways, dealers, and much, much more. Check out the link below for all the details. I hope to see you there. Let's battle. All right, we have found our first victim. Or maybe they're going to farm us here. Let's look at this here. So unfortunately on the draw, we have a Bauble and a Wasteland. We don't really have fast mana. One of the important things playing shop-based decks where you don't have Force of Will is understanding what hands you can keep and what hands are going to actually put pressure on your opponent. I don't know what my opponent's playing here, obviously, so we have to go kind of generic. We're looking for, sphere effects and wastelands and the ability to have a workshop to play threats ahead of curve. Then this hand doesn't really do that. Could this hand be good? This hand could theoretically be reasonable against a Bazaar deck, right? You could play a Vexing Bauble off of your Jet. If that resolves, they can't play any more spells. You can wasteland them off of the Bazaar, but it might already be too late if they've already put a Hollow one in play, or if they've put enough dredgers in their yard. And then besides that, the opponent hasn't revealed Lurrus, so we know they're not Lurrus. This hand might be like slightly more keepable against Lurrus because you have a high threat density, but you do have a low amount of mana. So I'm gonna go with the mulligan here. I have heard that there is some amount of lag on MTGO right now. Hopefully that doesn't affect us too much, but as you can see here, we are spinning. This hand is, of course, much, much better. We have one of our best lock pieces in Lodestone Golem, an additional lock piece in Sphere. We have our Workshop to accelerate us. Definitely a strong keep from us. The question will be, what card do we put back? With the Lodestone Golem, it's possible that this Nettlecyst isn't necessary, and we are going to want all of our lands. If we keep the Soul Ring, we do get to just play a Lodestone on turn 1, which is something that I'm very interested in. It's possible that the Saga's slow, but again, it's enabled pretty heavily by the Soul Ring. I think I'm going to err on the side of caution here, and we're going to put back this Nettle Cyst, and then we'll play off with these hands. These cards. Obviously, drawing lands from this spot. And we'll go here. Opponent's trying to figure out why we're waiting so long, and I'm trying to... One, I'm talking, and two, cards are just not actually going onto the battlefield. But I think we're going to be okay. Let's see what happens. We see a Flooded Strand, so that means our opponent could be on like a Tinker deck or on a Doomsday deck, maybe. Workshop. Yeah, again, I think the play I like the most is still just play Lodestone Golem. If my opponent like dazes the Soul Ring, then there's still some upside there. But yeah, I think this is just the strongest play we can make. Opponent didn't play any Moxen on turn 1, so this should be nice and impactful. Of course, it could just get forced, but we'll see what happens. It does get forced. Let's see what they pitch. Flusterstorm, obviously a dead card versus us, so pretty valuable pitch, or pretty invaluable card. Or I don't know exactly how you say that. It's very nice to be able to pitch a Flusterstorm. Sometimes words escape me, but all right, we got an Underground Sea. Are we going to get Doomsday killed? Sure feels like we're going to get Doomsday killed, but we didn't die here. A Sphere is very good. A Wasteland is very good. We have now drawn land. So we got very punished for my choice of bottoming the... I bottomed the Nettle Cyst here, which would have been a nice threat. It would have been an awkward threat, as I would have had to play it off of this workshop before playing a Sphere, but... All right, well, we've got a Sphere down, and we do technically have a threat with Urza Saga, but again, drawing 2 lands, which we can't play. Very, very unfortunate. That's like a pretty... Ooh, so it's not Doomsday. It's probably some kind of Tinker Breach deck. That's... I don't know. That's definitely a big argument towards not putting the Nettle Cyst away, but putting any of my lands away from that situation, like, you have to view the Wasteland as a spell, and you can't put away the Workshop, obviously, so I'd have to put away, like, an Urza Saga, which just doesn't seem correct. But... I am in a spot now where I am just not doing what my deck is supposed to do. I need to, when I get my lock piece down, close out the game as fast as possible. And I don't have a way to do that right now, which is a huge problem. The good news is my opponent's deck revolves around casting a lot of spells, and a bunch of them can be very high-costed spells, so the Sphere resistance is quite good. I am, unfortunately, having problems. Get this Ancient Tomb down, and I'm going to get another artifact in play to bump this. And these will be very large constructs, and this is obviously where the Sphere Shop's deck really is in an unfortunate spot where they restricted Saga, because having access to these very large quick clocks out of your mana base was a big upside. Wow, so that's a tropical island. So it's either... like a 4-color, there's a Tropical Island and Underground Sea. So it's got to be a 4-color Walker's deck or maybe an Oath deck. Either way, this Sphere should be quite good. Especially if you're like trying to play a Ren and 6, not a Ren and 6, but Ren and 6 is quite good against my deck. If you're trying to play like a Dak Fade-In or an Oko, then Sphere Resistance is quite powerful. And then if my opponent does not have a Wasteland, being able to make Construct tokens is going to be quite a challenge for my opponent to deal with. A lot of these decks don't really have the tools to beat Construct tokens anymore because of Urza Saga restriction, and you don't seem to like, you don't get as many constructs anymore. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to like metagame and build your deck around beating them. So it's very similar to like, you don't play around the Mental Misstep as much. You don't play around the, it's a one-of. It happens. Sometimes you win like Saga games with constructs because your opponent no longer has the incentive to try to beat them anymore, which is quite sad in my opinion, because like the constructs are certainly beatable if you build your deck correctly. So we're gonna assume our opponent is on 4-color Deathrite Shaman Walker stuff. I'm gonna assume that these Null Rods are bad, and then I am gonna keep in Vobble. I'm gonna look for 3 additional cards. I don't really know what kind of 1-drop spells my opponent's going to play. It's possible that Chalice on 1 is still good in this matchup. Having access to a Needle is not usually what I'm looking for. I'm going to bring in 1 Dismember, and the 2 Metamorphs. I really don't like Needle against these Planeswalker decks. They typically have like Besejus, and they're already bringing Vigors and stuff, and I just don't ever find Needle to be particularly interesting or permanent. And then like if a Needle is just, you know, one card and trying to like time walk your opponent a little bit, I just don't feel like it's that good. I do want to add additional threats to my deck. Wormcoil is a little suspect against possible Dak Fade-ins and Okos, so I'm going to bring in some Metamorphs and try to maybe play some more like Nettle Cysts and stuff. We'll see. But so yeah, it looks like our opponent just bricked on lands for a little bit in game one and was not able to answer the Saga in time, and we were able to sneak a win. I do think we snuck a win in game one because we did not draw very well. I would say we drew very poorly. We drew a bunch of lands that we didn't need. Our opponent didn't have any wastelands or anything for us. Obviously, this hand does not work. Doesn't have enough mana to play, so we're gonna mulligan. Opponent is also on a mulligan as well. Yeah, man, the spinny spins can't escape. Just trying to make some content. All right, what do we got? We've got that challenge that we were talking about, but again, one land hand, no mana. It's very unfortunate because of the decks that in Vintage, this is one of the one that plays the most mana. I guess we're only on 19, 26, 27, but I mean, 27 mana sources is almost half your deck, so. But a lot of these are spell lands, so it's here a little bit there. Let's mulligan this. This hand has better cards. So what we can do is we can go Vexing Bauble to make sure the sphere resolves, and we can crack the Vexing Bauble later, which I think is the plan. And I would rather have access to these wastelands than other spells. Obviously, Vexing Bauble and Sphere have this very interesting non-bonus with them. I don't know exactly. It's not bad because playing a bauble to make sure your sphere resolve is good, and you can cash in the bauble later. But while you have both a bauble and a sphere, your bauble actually doesn't do anything. So it is Oath of Druids. That's a huge problem. That is a huge issue. Wait, how many cages do we have? I didn't think it was Oath because of how many colors they were playing. We have one cage. Yeah, that is another thing. These decks, these stock sphere decks right now are not really geared to be Oath because Oath is another deck like Sphere that has fallen out of the metagame. There's almost no Oath being played at all in Vintage right now. We're lucky our opponent does not have a Forbidden Orchard. We're actually going to be stuck this bauble. We're not going to be able to crack it for a little bit. They can't play any 3-drops though, so that's good. 2-drop though. Another Oath maybe? Oh, Wrenn and 6. Yeah, that's really good against my Wasteland plan. So I could have played around my opponent drawing Wrenn and 6 by wastelanding the Tropical Island. So that's the downside of playing a Sphere. My Sphere was playing around 3-drop Planeswalkers, but the Wasteland would have helped maybe play around Wrenn and 6. I mean, not maybe. It would have at least delayed Wrenn and 6 for a turn because my opponent would not have the 2 mana because this Jet doesn't help. Oh, this Jet does help pay for Sphere, so. All right, so now I can't wasteland my opponent out of this game, which is going to be really hard. I can't really beat an Oath of Druids, right? I don't have there's no main deck Tabernacle. Interesting as well. Yeah, I don't think I can win this game, but I also don't I also need to figure out if my opponent is playing like Atraxas. What are they doing exactly? So I do think I need to, even though I don't see the way that I win this game, I also need to play it out just to learn a little bit more about what my opponent's doing. Yeah, so I'm gonna crack this bauble. Right. The problem is I can't really wasteland my opponent anymore because Wrenn and 6 basically prevents that. And on Sphering, my opponent doesn't really work either because my opponent just gets to fetch a land every turn. So eventually, my opponent will just find an Oko and win. But again, I kind of have to make my opponent do that just to find out what's going on in their deck list. So hopefully, we have to sit here and see what's going on. I mean, Volcanic, Underground Sea, Tropical Island. Obviously, there's no Deathrite Shaman, so we're just tying this all together with Ren and Sixes. I would assume we're still getting Atraxas, but I don't know if we're playing Show and Tell or what. What I do know is I don't know if we should even be strip mining my opponent from the spot. Like, does it make sense to make them wait? I mean, I feel like it does. I mean, maybe we won't be able to. Maybe I'll have to try to record. I don't know if like recording this later tonight is gonna help though. The process that's kind of the problem. Like if I record this later tonight, there's no chance or there's no guarantee that the things will get better. I have a lot of mana here, so I feel like I can take the time walk time here and just strip my opponent out of the ability to play spells for a little bit. Again, if they draw a Forbidden Orchard at any point, we just simply lose on the spot. Maybe if we make like a big enough Stone Coil Serpent, it could theoretically punch through. That seems like it would be asking for a lot, but we do have these like Golos looping plays with like Caracas, so I don't know. There's things to play too, though. I guess a Ren and 6 ultimate is probably going to happen, and that will make this not very good for me. I didn't bring in the one cage, and one cage is not a lot either, but I didn't bring the one cage in either, so don't really know what I'm gonna do about that, but yeah. So I mean, we did predict that it could possibly have been Oath or Deathrite. I just had thought with the mana base that we had seen, it was more likely to be a Deathrite Shaman deck than an Oath deck. Maybe we're always supposed to bring in the one cage anyways as a hedge. That's absolutely possible. Even if it's going to be bad in a certain percentage of the time when your opponent is not on it, maybe just having access to it would be worth it. Mystic Forge is an interesting card here, though I guess my opponent can have Force now, so. Oh, I guess maybe I have to play. Oh, it just resolves, huh? Alright, well, I get to play some spells off the top, which is kind of nice. Doesn't really synergize well with Sphere Resistance, but I have so much mana. I think what I'm going to do is leave this Stone Coil so I can make a humongous Stone Coil and hope that that is good enough. That's my plan, so. See what happens. I assume my opponent will take up Ren one more time. It's very important to have your own little Crucible effect here. That's a lot of red. 2 Volcanics. I guess it makes sense if you have Ren and 6 in your deck. You need to make sure you're mostly tropical and Volcanics. That's why I was kind of surprised to see Jet. Time Walk. Okay. Well, now my opponent can take infinite turns at some point here. And by some point, I mean next turn. They take infinite turns. Okay. I don't really feel like playing it out. My opponent has infinite turns here by Ren and 6ing, leaving the Ren and 6 in play, and then looping Time Walk with Retrace, and every turn they buy back with Ren to go up. And so they have infinite turns with Time Walk. So that's good enough for me. I will bring in the cage. And then I am not as interested in... I guess the Metamorph still has some versatility there. Chalice, I like... Maybe we'll just go... We don't need this Dismember anymore. That's an easy one. The Needle gets like slightly better when they're not Deathrite Shaman stuff. Or I guess it doesn't maybe get slightly worse. Like it's just that the Oko is more important and the Ren 6 is more important than the bugs random planeswalkers. But again, I guess this Karn is not very good. So I can just get rid of the Karn and we can play a Needle instead. Okay, so here we go. On the play now. We want to get a hand that does some good locking down. This is a hand that does some amount of locking, so I'm definitely going to keep this one. It's a very aggressive hand, very aggro-slated hand, but it does have a sphere. So what do we want to do, though? I think the answer is simply we play a workshop and play a sphere. We're pretty priced into that. We can't let our opponent get too far ahead on stuff And obviously we could go, you know, play a patchwork first, but I think I would rather make sure my opponent can't sphere, and then we can play any of our 2-drops for 3. I don't know if my opponent has a basic in their deck. I would say it's more likely than not that they do not have a basic in their deck, considering they have 4 colors or 5 colors. I'm gonna say white, so no white. So 4 colors. Looks like they got I got the force on the sphere. Okay. It's definitely bad. We definitely don't want to be without our lock piece, but we'll see what happens here. Because if they go like Mox, land, Oath, then obviously this whole aggressive plan just does not do anything. But when you only have 1 cage in your sideboard, there's not much you can do as the Seer Shops player. This is a historically horrible matchup for workshops. And you'll see in previous metas, workshop decks will play like 4 cages, Graph Digger's cages, as a way to try to beat this deck. And so, oh man, we were just not restricting our opponent in mana in any way here, huh? I guess there's no reason still not to play around Daze, so let's just go Patchwork and Mox and trigger our Patchwork, and then a Nettle Cyst. I think a Nettle Cyst is better than playing a 3/3 Stonecoil Serpent. Yeah, I think it's just the best use of the mana. The Mox isn't a bad draw, though. Let's just double spell this turn. Double spelling is pretty important. But again, if my opponent finds an Oath, the game has to end very quickly. So we'll see what happens. I don't know if they're keeping this fetch to protect from Ghost Quarter, which may or may not actually have no basics defined. We'll see. Our Patchwork is nicely protected from a lot of things, but this Nettle Cyst could be a little vulnerable. They have an Oath? No, they have a Wrenn and 6. Okay, that's not too bad. We can kill that in 1 attack if we want, but we might actually not want to. We might just want to clobber them. This might just be not a game where that matters, especially with how much mana they have with all these Mox and stuff. I mean, if they have a fetch land and an Oath here, then that's certainly a problem. So we need to see. If we play 2 creatures next turn, we get to attack for 10 total. Or we can play 1 big creature. We'll have to see what makes more sense. It is a green land. Is it an Oath? Or is it like a removal spell? It's an Oath. Ah, that's so brutal for us. That is absolutely brutal. What is a play that gets us out of here? Maybe a Mystic Forge into multiple zeros? Shrinosphere. So I can play Stonecoil on 1, Stonecoil on 1, and Trinosphere, which will bump this person 3 and this one 3, dealing 12 and put them to 3. And then this is protection from multicolored, so I could equip one of them with the Nettle Cyst and attack through an Atraxa. So I think that's going to be my plan. Obviously, if they like remove this Emerald, there could be a problem with that plan. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, but I see an opening here, and I'm going to take it. Although I guess my opponent can Wrenn and 6 and kill a Stonecoil Serpent. So maybe the question actually becomes, if I do 2 cards, if I do a Stonecoil on 2, and if this, I still attack for 5. Yeah, that might be better. Just to like get rid of the possibility of my opponent pinging. But then what if my opponent has 2 Wrenn and 6s? But I have a Trinosphere. Yeah, let's go with Stonecoil Serpent for 2. I do think playing the Trinosphere is correct because I want to be able to hamper my opponent's turn if they play like an Atraxa, right? Or if they like are on a Sun Titan Breach package or something. I want to make sure that my opponent can't just go off. And I guess I could kill the Wrenn and 6. But then, so if this thing equips onto here, it'd be 7. I might not kill them, so let's just attack them. I want to try to set up a lethal attack next turn is basically what we're trying to do. We'll see if that actually works out. But they're at 5. There's a Trinosphere in play, and they have an Oath trigger with 4 mana plus 5 mana if they plus their Wrenn. So let's see what happens. Kind of an interesting spot, though. we were able to put enough pressure down for when this Oath came down on turn 2 that we still have a decent chance. Again, if they find like an Atraxa and they hit a Beseiju, then that's a huge problem. Oh, this thing has pro multicolor. So actually Ren and 6 can't hit it. So probably would have rather dealt the extra 2 damage and played the 2/1/1 Stonecoil Serpents. That was a mistake. I didn't even think about that. Oh, it's Pyrogoyf Oath. Oh. Well, now I wish I had 2 Stonecoil Serpents. But I guess I probably wouldn't be moving things onto the Stonecoil Serpent anyways because I'd be trying to be attacking for lethal with these 2 units. Yeah, I think this is a spot where we could be winning. Pyrogoyf is certainly a lot less powerful than Atraxa, even if Atraxa is weak to Stonecoil Serpent. Let's see what happens here. Went to the Dome piece. Don't want to kill the Stonecoil Serpent? Interesting. I guess if you play another Pyrogoyf, you do an 8 to my face. That's not enough. This might just go through a Pyrogoyf. Let's see. Second Pyrogoyf. So now you have 8 more damage. Okay. Is it not better to like double up on a something or I don't really know. Okay, now the Serpent's dying. I don't think 8 to my face mattered here. I guess it does mean that the next Pyrogoyf off the Oath kills me if you go to my face here. I guess that's interesting. So did I do good? So yeah, if they that also puts an artifact in the yard. So if they had lead on this also would have put this. They could have wiped most of the things off my board if they wanted to. But they're gonna have to block with both Pyrogoyfs here to not die. So do I want all my creatures to live? Well, I kind of need to attack and win. So I don't think I'm going to Ghost Quarter. So I guess the answer here is to simply play a 6-drop and make my opponent chump with some Pyrogoyfs. Interesting. I haven't played against the Pyrogoyf deck in a while, so caught me a little bit by surprise. Wait a second. They put the land, so these things are 4/5s now. Maybe they didn't want to bring. Oh no, they can just fetch at any point. Okay, that's fine. Oh, actually, if they become 5/6s, then I take 10. Oh wow. Because one of the Nettlecyst is not going to die if they just fetch. So I guess I actually have to just attack with 1, and they block with 1, and then take a. I guess if it flips like a Planeswalker or something, I die. Wow. But if I attack with 2, then one of them kills my guy, one of them kills their guy, and I would be left with 2 and 1. That doesn't actually help me. So maybe I was supposed to not attack and not play a Stonecoil. Okay, wait, I can attack with just the Nettlecyst, which forces my opponent. I guess my opponent could just chump away 1, but then I don't lose my Nettlecyst. So if I attack with just this, my opponent can eat this entirely, in which case they won't get an Oath trigger. I still have 2 blockers. Yeah, maybe I was just not supposed to play the Stonecoil, or maybe I was supposed to play the Stonecoil for 4 and equip the Pyrogoyf, the Patchwork. But if I do this, then they have to do something. I don't know. I'm gonna try this. I think waiting another turn is good for me, and not giving them an Oath trigger is good for me. Because there are definitely ways I just die. Because like they could fetch and then hit a Planeswalker on the Oath trigger. They might still do that. To be fair, they might just not fetch, let this die, and then yeah, okay. So that's what they're going to do. They're going to try to go for the kill here. So if their Oath flips over a Planeswalker and a land or another Oath, they'll do 12 damage on the Pyro Boy with ETB and kill me. Wow. Very cool. Very cool. So I think I made mistakes and maybe I wasn't supposed to play Stone Coil, or I could have played Stone Coil and equipped a Nettlecyst to it. Would have been an interesting play as well. So yeah, I made some mistakes, it looks like here. Oh, there's a Traxa? Okay. That throws everything off. This Atraxa hit Ponder. Oh, it hit Time Walk. Wow, and it hit Abrupt Decay. Wow. Okay, so I think I died to this because it's got Time Walk Oath into another Pyroglyph, and then an Atraxa. Oh man. Ooh man. Oh, I did not see an Atraxa coming. I thought that there'd be all Pyroglyphs, but yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. I definitely had some choices in this game that I didn't take. So they took Abrupt Decay, Orchard, and Time Walk. So they get to at least play another Time Walk here for another Pyroglyph or another Atraxa. And again, they have Abrupt Decay. They can't Abrupt Decay the Stone Coil, but they can Abrupt Decay the Patchwork Automaton for 4 mana. Oh, they Abrupt Decay the Trinisphere so that they can Time Walk? Okay, sure. I mean, they could have done that anyways. I guess they did. They do have a Lotus. Okay, I mean, their last card is Time Walk, so, I mean, we know their whole hand. They have a Wrenn and 6 activation as well. I still have a Stone Coil to block Atraxa, but it does... Does it lifelink? Maybe it doesn't lifelink. It doesn't deal damage. This goes up to 6. I mean, it kind of depends on this Oath trigger. But again, if my opponent hits a Planeswalker or an Oath and a Pyroglyph, I do just get domed for 12. Which is a problem. All right, well, see what happens. There were definitely choices in this game that I could have made differently that might have put me in a better place to win. Very interesting game, actually, for how one-sided Oath versus attacking creatures is, especially for shops. Kind of an interesting game. It's unfortunate because I really wanted my opponent to hit on Traxa on the very first one, because then I could have just gotten in, but let's see what happens. All right, so my opponent did hit the Pyroglyph, and the Pyroglyph did not hit an Oath or a Planeswalker, so it's going to deal 10, but that's not going to kill me. Of course, they can deal 10 to the Stone Coil Serpent, which probably is winning, to be fair. Because... No, they're going 10 to the Dome. I'm a little worried about that play from my opponent here. I guess they have a Pyroglyph to help block the Stone Coil, so maybe it's enough. So 10 to the Dome. Natural draw. If they had pinged me with Wrenn and 6 last turn, they could have prevented this, actually. So my opponent maybe made a mistake with not pinging with Wrenn and 6, because they could have double pinged and it would have been fine. But now... I just block this Atraxa with my Stone Coil. And nothing happens. Okay. Yeah, my opponent should probably have Wrenn and 6 pinged me to avoid the problem of hitting a Pyroglyph and missing on an Oath or a Planeswalker. Wow, what a cool game. What a really cool game. Lots of interesting little things. I'm glad we played this out, actually. All right, so I gain 1 life. I guess, did my opponent even activate their Wrenn and 6 there? They might have forgotten. So if I equip my Nettlecyst to my Stone Coil Serpent, I have 10 damage. Oh, wait, does that change something? And they would be able to block with both Pyroglyphs, so it doesn't really look good. They can activate for another Glyph that just kills me, I assume. As long as they have another Glyph in their deck. But I could search for a Cage and the game is stalling, right? All right, so let's see what this looks like. I activate this and I Inventor's Fair. I can't equip 2 Nettle Cysts. I could play another Stone Coil Serpent, but again, if I don't get a cage here, then I do die to the Goyf off the coming off the Oath of Druids, if that's a thing. I could Metamorph and go to 1 and Metamorph the Atraxa, but there's nothing I can really hit off the Metamorph. Like, I'd have to hit a cage off the Metamorph Atraxa, which wouldn't really work. I mean, I'd love to get an Inventor's Fair and loop it here with a Crucible. Get a Crucible so I could loop the Inventor's Fair. That doesn't really help me either. So I think no matter what, I just have to start with a cage and work from there. Maybe I could have attacked first. So if I put everything on a Patchwork Automaton, it doesn't really help me because I do have to double block. I still have to block all these things. Okay. And again, if I move this onto here, it's 11 damage and it doesn't get through the 2 Pyroglyphs. So I think I just have to wait, which is crazy. We're definitely losing this game now, but maybe there's ways out. They drew something. They're paying for costs. They drew a Brainstorm. Yeah, it's probably good. Yeah. My opponent and I both had optimizations in this game that we could have gone through. Strip Mine. That's pretty good. On my academy, I assume. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they do have Red and 6 Strip Mine lock now. And the minute they ultimate Red and 6, they have a bunch of Time Walks. Another Oath. So I might have to attack this turn anyways. What gets me out of this? I couldn't equip on that turn because then I would die. So I had to wait. Ancient Tomb is not it. So if I equip my Stone Coil and attack for 11, they have to... I really needed... that doesn't really work either. If I attack all, they lifelink on this Atraxa. If I attack 1... If I just attack with the Stone Coil Serpent, then they block with a Pyroglyph and then kill me with an Atraxa because I don't have a follow-up Stone Coil Serpent. I think there's no way out. Well, I can give my opponent another turn to maybe not have lands to retrace right away. Yeah, I don't think there's a winning attack here, so I am gonna F6 and see what happens. Man, close game. Close game. So I give my opponent back the turn. They either Red and 6 ultimate right now, and they have a Strip Mine in their hand that they can use to retrace Time Walk. Oh no, actually, it's straightforward. They simply ultimate right now and use the Strip Mine retrace to retrace Abrupt Decay. And Abrupt Decay, the Patchwork or the Nettle Cyst or whatever, and then attack for lethal. Okay. So yeah, this is actually just lost on the board. Yeah, I don't think from here there was much I could have done. I don't think there was a tutor that I could have taken. Like a different Inventor's Fair tutor. I don't feel like that was the thing. Don't know why my opponent is giving me spirit tokens, because now they don't win the game with abrupt decay. Isn't that bad? I feel like this is bad. Are they gonna like go through their oath and not put something in so that they can? Oh wait, with cage they can. Oh, maybe shouldn't they have activated the oath so that they would find oh, they have a collector oof. What is happening? Why doesn't my opponent have pyroglyphs and atraxas? Oh my god, I played this game so badly because I assumed my opponent had oh, why does my opponent have collector oofs in their deck? I'm so confused. All right, well now I don't lose, so I guess that's why my opponent wasn't going super hard on these oaths, but I made a lot of assumptions in this game that were incorrect. I just assumed that more Atraxas and more Pyroglyphs would be coming off the top. So my opponent activated an oath, and that put a Collector Roof on the top of the library, and then they didn't run in 6 ultimate, so they're just going to play... they're going to strip mine me and play an oof, I guess. But I guess an oof does stop me from nettle assisting onto my Stonecoil Serpent, so maybe I just have no counterplay actually for that. I'm so bewildered by what just happened. But yeah, that might actually just be enough though. Like if I can't equip my nettle assist, I don't see an attacking line that actually gets me there. What does I could attack. Just can't attack all because of Atraxa though. So yeah. Vexing Bauble. I guess so. Oh, I guess I'm just like walking into this strip mine loop. I don't know. I don't really see like a path forward, unfortunately. Like maybe I can attack with this Patchwork Automaton because I have enough blockers now. But I don't have enough blockers for like double Time Walk. This thing has Death Touch lifelinking. I don't know. Sure. No, I mean I can't because they're just gonna run in 6 Time Walk loop. So I'm just dead. I don't know. I don't think I had outs, but it's very, very odd. I kind of want to see what they do with this oath just because I want to see what's going on, but my opponent does have the win here. Yeah, sure. I don't know. Sure, I don't care. It doesn't matter is the problem. Because my opponent has run in 6 and they have Time Walk. I just want to see if they activate this oath because I'm just curious. Do they have more collector oofs? Because if my opponent has more, if my opponent had hit collector oof instead of Pyroglyph off the oath, they would never be anywhere close in this game. Yeah, I can't recommend putting collector oofs in, especially against this deck, which plays null rods in the main. I would not board in collector oofs here. That could have been so bad for my opponent if they got unlucky on their oath flip. Sorry, they revealed another collector roof off oath. Yeah, wow. Now I feel kind of unlucky to lose the game or to win the to lose the game because my opponent had some really bad collector oof hits here. And I can't recommend that you bring in collector oof against this kind of deck. I understand like you bring in collector oof against, you know, Jewel and that stuff, but against this deck, oof is not what you're looking for. You need to make sure that your oath is hitting you game-winning targets. But I died. So GG's to my opponent. I'm dead. I'll see you in round 2. All right, onward to round 2. If I was in the play, I think I'd tape this hand. On the draw, I'm less inclined, but I have coverage. My opponent did not reveal Lurrus again, unfortunately. We want our opponent to reveal Lurrus every turn, or every time, because that should be our favored matchup. I'm going to try this because I think it has some decent game against a variety of different non-Lurrus decks, because I have the Wasteland, I have the Null Rod, and then I have Powerful Action. I could see that this is incorrect and should just be a mulligan. We'll see what happens. You're on the draw anyways. Ooh, initiative. So this isn't like the worst hand against initiative, but it's definitely has some problems. See if they just go for like a big initiative creature here. It's kind of crazy that you would keep just Seasoned Engineer go, but I mean, you definitely can. It's good against our deck for sure. Now, if we can draw some extra fast mana, I think we'd be in a better spot. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to. Caracas isn't going to help us. So I'm just going to drop Workshop. I'm going to turn off this Sapphire so that next turn they can't play a 3-drop with their sphere, with their planes in hand. And that way, the turn after, I can play a Golos, but it's going to probably be too late because this thing is an unkillable, unblockable initiative creature, and it's just going to murder our deck. On the play, we would obviously have easily won the game by playing turn 1 Null Rod, and my opponent's deck would not be able to function, but we lost the die roll, and you can see here why the initiative matchup might be very problematic for Sphere Shops. Yeah, definitely a die roll dependent matchup. We had a lot of game in this game if we were on the play here. Probably just a straight up easy win. If I had mulligan this hand to something better, it's not necessarily going to change the game. With opponent playing a turn 1 Seasoned Engineer, it's just going to be very hard for this deck to win ever. It's not like I have the ability to go Golos, get Tabernacle, and try to lock, like, you know, I have a Null Rod. I can theoretically Wasteland them, but if they just pay for this even 1 or 2 turns, I immediately die. So is there like any recourse here? Do I have anything that can help me? No. I just am simply going to lose. That's pretty unfortunate. Yeah, because they hit me for as much as 12 or 13 next turn, and then I die, and then I fall. Yeah, I just this play is playing a turn 1 Seasoned Engineer and playing no like interruptive piece on turn 1 is a very, very risky play against a person who did not reveal Lurrus. If you play this on turn 1 against like Doomsday or Jewel or something, you will just lose. But if you play this, you know, it's a lot more acceptable against Lurrus, because Lurrus is going to have a hard time with this. And of course, right here, I'm going to have a hard time with this. So it's a very big gamble to play turn 1 initiative creature over a turn 1 hate piece. So on the play, I do like Null Rods in this matchup. I like Wormcoils in this matchup. I like Dismember in this matchup. I like Metamorphs in this matchup. I don't like Spheres of any kind in this matchup. I don't find that they are useful. But Null Rodding and Wastelanding is very useful, and Vexing Bauble, Transfer, and Chalice are very useful. Karn is very good in that sense. We'll obviously change it up a bit if we win this game and get to go on the draw in the final match, or final game. Stonecoil is a little bit worse than normal because it doesn't really do anything to them. So we're gonna run like this. Oh, I don't have a Tabernacle in my main. I keep thinking I have a Tabernacle in my main. You don't bring in Tabernacle here. I mean, maybe you bring in Tabernacle here because you are Golos. So like Tabernacle is a weird Magic card where everyone who's new to Vintage uses it incorrectly, except for the times where you want to use it. Basically, Tabernacle in every deck that's not this deck, very specifically this deck, Tabernacle is basically an anti-Bazaar card specifically, not an anti-creature card. It was mainly used to beat the aggro and Countervine decks using Hollow One and Vengevine. But it's also decent against prized amalgams and the things coming out of Dredge. That being said, you don't typically want to board in Tabernacle in any deck other than this deck against Mono White Initiative, because doesn't actually do enough. It doesn't really stop them. But this deck, theoretically, you can get them underneath a Null Rod on the play. Maybe you can Wasteland them off lands, and maybe Tabernacle actually is a decent tutor target off of your Golos. So like, this is one of the few instances where it might make sense to bring that Tabernacle in. The reason I keep getting confused is because Golos decks has historically played a Tabernacle in the main as one of their toolbox targets. So this is Wormcoil, Wasteland. Wow, that's a tough one to pick. I'm gonna try it, but I'm not sure this hand is actually good. Yeah, I don't know if this hand's actually good. Like, we do get a creature down on turn 1, which is very important. But I don't have 6 mana. Oh, they revealed a Chancellor. That's, like, super annoying, isn't it? Because I can't actually pay for the Chancellor. Unless I play, like, Caracas Ruby to start. Which I guess is what I have to do. It's, like, super silly. I could just throw the Ruby into the Chancellor, and then I have a 1/1 Patchwork Automaton. Just seems stupid. So I guess I'm just going to play this. The Chancellor really messed things up. Because I can't pay for the Chancellor with my Workshop mana. So I can't go like Workshop, Automaton, Ruby, which is the big problem here. At least I can go Wasteland Automaton next turn, but they have Wasteland, and they're not Wastelanding me. And then I drew an Uncastable. Man, this game is going very, very silly. At the very least, because I didn't get... Well, I could get Wastelanded again next turn, but... I guess what I should do is I should just play this Wasteland out. And then play this Patchwork. That way I don't get my Workshop Wastelanded, and then maybe next turn I can go Workshop Engine. But I guess if my opponent just plays like a Peacekeeper or something, then I'm in trouble. I don't like how this game went. Everything kind of fell apart. Karn is always fun in this deck as it's very seldom castable. You need to have the right combination of mana to be able to play a Karn early enough in the game, but sometimes you have it and it's game ending, so it's like definitely not correct for me to lose both my lands to get rid of this Wasteland here. So we'll see what happens to us on this next turn. Clearly my opponent kept this Wasteland because they wanted to use it for mana. I could hit it, but again, I'm not gonna be able to play anything forever if I do that, so it's really, really poor. Whereas if I can get a Wormcoil down, at least I have some sort of stabilization happening. But again, my opponent plays a land, they play a Peacekeeper, they make Wormcoil cost 8, they have a huge problem. They drew a Mana Crypt off the top. They would have played it. Maybe they wouldn't have played it because they didn't have a play off of it. I mean, theoretically... Really? Alright. Do they not have a land? They do have a land. Okay, so they're just gonna play a Seasoned Dungeoneer and hope it's good. I mean, it might be good enough. Like, yeah, all right. Maybe we just lose to this. Dismember is our best draw by a country mile, but a Moxion's a pretty good draw. Nice. All right. Well, I will dismember this. Get in, steal the initiative. I don't have a basic to search, though. But at least we took the initiative for a second. Yeah. I mean, I would love to have played Karn this turn. Turn off all their Moxen, but... Now they have the basic plane, so they can play anything, basically. That's not the Chancellor. Not a great spot, all things considered. They play another initiative creature, they take it back. We don't have much going for us here. We don't have the ability to play these Wormcoils because we don't have 6 mana because we got Wastelanded. I don't know. Maybe these Wormcoils were not correct. It's kind of hard to say that. They have another Seasoned Dungeoneer. Yeah, I mean, Seasoned Engineer is a hell of a good card in these just completely creature-based mirrors. I don't really know what I'm supposed to do about that. The Wormcoil would help, as it is lifelinking. So if I can just hit a mana source... Oh, maybe I should have had a waste in my deck. Golos. Well, Golos is not the end of the world, or not the best card, but it's not the worst. So what card do I want off of this? Don't think we're attacking their mana, so it's just what gives us the best plan. Saga gives us constructs. Inventive Fair gains us a little life. Excuse me. Solarian Academy gives us 3 mana. Yeah. I'm gonna go with a Tolarian Academy. I have enough threats, and I want to get the Worm Coils in play over Construct tokens. But hey, I am gonna go. I guess I'm just dead actually, because I'm gonna take 10 this turn, and then if any of these Seasoned Engineers hit me, I lose. So it's like I'm actually just dead before the Worm Coil can do anything. Oh my god, this Seasoned Engineer card. I lost too much life for that Dismember. If my opponent hits me here, if they hit any non-land off the next 2 attacks, I die. So, yeah, I just lose. Unless they swords me for some reason. Man, this is brutal. But again, this is something that we saw in the data. We saw a losing initiative matchup, and this makes a lot of sense. I do think that some of these games could have gone our way if things had gone even slightly better. But and my opponent did have to be fair, my opponent did have a Black Lotus start in game 1 and a Mana Crypt start in game 2, which are top end initiative draws. Jesus. So they have that going for us, and we didn't have like great draws. We had medium draws. So, but we are getting walloped here. There is no recourse. They did hit a land, but they are also going to activate the Thorn of the Dead at some point here. Also, I don't have 6 mana anymore because my opponent drew another Wasteland. Yeah, all right, get me out of here. We got destroyed. It was not close. All right, we've yet to find the oppressive cat mama, and Phil is not going to indulge us in that. Phil is going to either murder us with Dredge or Jewel, or something not fair. Let's see what we can do. So far, I have not been impressed, I should say, with this deck, but obviously there were some parts where the pilot could have played a little better. But again, these were not good matchups. So, what do I think about this hand? I'm definitely keeping this hand. I'm just trying to figure out how the hell I'm supposed to play it out. I might put away the Nettlecyst and just hope to draw land so that I can play Golos Crucible and everything. Like, these are if I get rid of Nettlecyst, these are all my best cards, right? So I don't know if my opponent is on Dredge or if my opponent is on Jewel. If they're on Jewel, then I want to slam a Null Rod. If they're on Dredge, I want to slam a Sphere. Either way, I think I'm deploying my mana and playing we're getting misstepped. It's not great for me. I'm gonna play a Sphere and hope they're like. I think playing a Sphere plays a little bit more generically. Where if I played a Null Rod, it's very specifically hoping that they are in fact on Jewel. We'll see what happens. All right, we have a Sphere. So if they're on Dredge, they can't play any more non-hollow 1 spells. And if they are okay, they're on Dredge. All right, so now I need a Wasteland. This Golos could give me a Wasteland, but I would need 3 mana. Oh, they're on Countervine, and they have triple Graveyard card and a hollow 1 for 1. Man, Phil, I might have a 0% win rate. I might have a 0% win rate against this player. It's pretty impressive. I'm gonna get a Crucible in play, I think. It cost me 2 life to do that, so maybe it's not worth it. I need 1 more mana to play Golos. The Sphere is very good against this deck. They won't be able to play anything, really. That's not a hollow 1, but they are drawing additional 2 cards every turn because this Bazaar is free. That's not good. But if we get this Golos in play, we might be okay. Golos blocks hollow 1, nice and easy. 3/5 versus 4/4. Then we can strip mine this Bazaar. They have another hollow 1. We don't again have the we don't have that Tabernacle in the main. This is the matchup basically that Tabernacle in Vintage is for. This deck doesn't really exist anymore, but this only makes a 3/3. This is getting bad. Oh, I hit the wrong button there, but that's okay. So I'm going to take a hit for 8, and I'll go to 4. And then if I draw a land, I play a Golos and I stabilize. But if I don't, it looks like I'm going to die. Crazy. Yeah, I mean, this is a good matchup, all things considered. One of our best. So we'll see if we can pull something out here, but the mental misstep hitting my 1 of 2 1-drops was not ideal. They found 3 hollow ones in the top 15. Now we lose even if we do play a land. What? I don't know if I've ever beaten this player. He's got my number, that's for sure. 3 in the top 15 is very bad for me. I didn't hit the land anyways, so it didn't really matter, but that's so crazy. Oh, okay. So we took a nice game 1L versus Countervine here. Worm Coils are great. Needle is great. Cage is not very good. Tabernacle is great. Leyline is good. Cage only hits Vengevine is the reason I say that. Then maybe we have a Metamorphs in our lives. Post board, I guess they can play like they can technically play through a sphere, I should say, if they like play a wasteland and use it to cast spells. Something to consider. Null Rod is gone, and then Karn is gone, and then Chalice doesn't do anything. I don't really like all of this. I like all of this. I think Stone Coil is not very good. I do want all these. Maybe Metamorph is like the least effective of the next cards to bring in. Let's try something like this. This is a good matchup, I said, but Phil's got my number, so this is I can't ever mulligan this hand, but it's not a good hand because 2 ley lines is actually bad because their only way to remove ley line is Vigor, which hits 2 things. But I can't mulligan this hand. I have to keep a 7-card ley line hand. Very frustrating, but it is a keep. All right, I will board it, put in 2 ley lines, and see how that goes. Gonna go with the non-workshop in case I get wastelanded and just go Patchwork Ruby. I guess it's not. All right. Now, if they have a Vigor, it's really bad for me. If they have a hollow one, it's really bad for me, actually, because the Patchwork was kind of necessary here, tying it all together. Yeah. It's really unfortunate that 2 ley lines isn't actually good versus Bazaar in the modern era because of Vigor. Vigor hitting 2 hate pieces is just crazy. Obviously, Rootwalla gets played through ley line, so he's going to get 2 1/1s here. Very nice little interaction. The way Madness works is you get discarded into exile and then cast from exile. And a hollow one. All right, so we got some problems. The good news is the Nettlecyst actually gets pumped by the ley lines because they're enchantments. So the Nettlecyst actually does get good enough with 2 ley lines here. Unless, of course, my opponent has a Vigor or something. I would rather get the Golos down. And then I'm going to get a Tabernacle and wipe their whole board if this resolves. I mean, I guess maybe I have to play Nettlecyst because I have to play around 2nd Force of Will. I mean, maybe I have to play around 2nd Force of Will. Am I supposed to play around 2nd Force of Will, or I'm supposed to just play before they can get a Wasteland, just get the Tabernacle? I think I'm supposed to play the Golos and just play the Tabernacle, but I don't know. They discarded Squee. They have the way. See, now I can't Tabernacle them, right? Oh, well, I guess I could if I. I don't know. All right, I go to 10. Again, this Nettlecyst is going to block off the whole board, though, because of these ley lines pumping it. So it's at least something going my way. All right, so now I have a 4/4 Nettlecyst. I will trade off immediately with this hollow one. Because I need as much life as I can to play with Ancient Tube and Metamorph. It's unfortunate, but it is what I have to do. So I take, maybe I don't have to. Maybe I take 5. And I can't play the Metamorph, so. Probably just have to straight up block the hollow one here. Take this, go to 6, go to 4, go to 2. It's kind of scary, actually. Maybe I messed up, and I mean, my opponent would have wastelanded this workshop anyways, but maybe I could have played the workshop the first turn. Maybe that would have been better. I was kind of worried about wasteland, though. Another ley line, huh? So I think I'm supposed to go to 2 and Metamorph a Nettlecyst. And then I am dying to later Root Wallas and stuff, but If they find a root wall off this, I do die on the spot. They found a root wall. All right. Well, I don't know. I just lost the best matchup, I guess. So I could definitely have made different choices in this game. But I'm not really sure that my choices were bad. The only one I could have maybe saved 2 life on the very first turn with the workshop automaton. Maybe that's a play that most people would make that I wouldn't make. Because I have the ley lines, there's like a lot of incentive for my opponent to like wasteland my first land. Unless they have, of course, a bunch of things. Because if I had an extra 2 life here, which I would, I'd have an extra 2 life here. I would be at 4. I can block once, and then I would take 3 and go to... I mean, I would still lose, right? I would still actually lose. So it wouldn't change anything, but it would maybe be a play we could make differently. Wow. My opponent had double force, right? They had force of will for automaton and force of will for Golos. 6 free power, and it was enough. I'm 0-3. All right, do not despair. There is still hope. I can find a way. I don't think I could get better matchup than that, but this is a very aggressive draw. No lock pieces on the draw again. We have not won. Have we won any die rolls? Winning die rolls would help a lot here. This one again, I can see like actual justification for not keeping this hand because it is not very restrictive. Again, on the die roll, a Vexing Bauble here turns off their... We're getting tinkered. Oh my god, I can't play. This is why we don't play. Someone in the in the YouTube comments was asking before, hey, Justin, please play some non-forcible decks. Well, this is what happens. This is what happens when you play non-forcible decks. You lose. You lose the game. Non-forcible decks that don't work in Vintage unless you only play against Lurrus. And guess what? We played against no Lurrus. So I'm dying. Everything's bad. Okay. It's fine. It's fine. We take an L here. If we had been on the play, the Vexing Ball would have been great, but we were not on the play. So if my opponent were to pass the turn from this spot, is there anything we can realistically do? Like we can wasteland them, but they'll still have 6 mana. So we could play our own Vexing Bauble and a 1/1 Stonecoil Serpent and hope our opponent has nothing else. That doesn't seem very useful. I think the best thing to do is probably to mulligan or to concede so that our opponent doesn't know what we're on. If that is actually the best line here, that is very silly, but it might be the case. I mean, that means they don't have a Metamorph. They could have a Pio. Can't really stop. I mean, if I draw a Null Rod, that's my best line. But they could have a Sink into Stupor off of this Black Lotus as well. Workshop. Does that let me do anything good? I mean, I have to Wasteland, right? I think we have to Wasteland and Pray. I don't really see other options. Oh, yeah, Workshop. 6 mana Jewel. Yeah, okay. I mean, I wasn't beating 6 mana Jewel. Oh, Mystic Forge, I see. Mystic Forge, go. I mean, none of this is advancing my game plan, is the problem. It's possible that I am just supposed to play... Ooh, maybe I was supposed to play... I wanted maybe I was supposed to play 2 threats here. It's fine. It's possible I was just supposed to concede to show that we weren't to not show what we were on, but this matchup is so abysmal that it might not matter. Like, we do have 4 null rods and 2 mind break traps, but that's not even close to enough to win this matchup. Hard cast a second Jewel. Okay. I mean, the minute they find a Metamorph, we lose. Even a Sink into Stupor. They have both 2 workshops, 2 jewels. We're just dead. Maybe an 05 league. Maybe Sphere Shops is only back in challenges where you can actually find Lurrus players, because we have been bullied. Extensively bullied for 3 rounds of Magic. I don't know. This is nothing is vibing very well for me. If we lose to all the non-Lurrus decks and you only beat Lurrus decks, that's a problem because Lurrus decks don't make up enough of the field to justify that. If we're looking at, last week's data, Lurrus decks made up a good amount of the field, but not a super crazy amount. Lurrus decks made up 30% of the field. So 70% of decks you're going to have bad matchups against is not a good sign. My opponent is doing Metamorph and Ancestral and has 10 cards and still has 8 mana. Yeah, we're not going to be able to do anything. Even if we do attack and steal the jewels, I'm not even sure that we would win. I'm not even convinced that that's a winning spot, which is pretty funny. Once they cast PO, I'll do the conceding, so. But yeah. The fact that Initiative and Jewel both look like very bad matchups for Sphere Shops is absolutely a reason to disqualify this deck as a choice. There are so many Jewel and Sphere players, no matter how well those decks are doing. I'm sorry, Jewel and Initiative players, no matter how well those decks are doing. Yeah, so I there's the bounce. So they did fizzle out again, which is funny, but fizzle out with 10 cards in hand is not really a problem here. Opponent probably has hard casted. Yeah, I mean, let's see how many creatures we can play. Oh, I was hoping they would like crack a Lotus and force it, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. And my opponent's gonna untap with a bajillion mana. I'm not even gonna bother playing the Stone Coil out. Again, they can even just like Metamorph as a that'll assist if they wanted to. About a million ways we die from this spot. Yeah, the One Ring is gonna draw a bunch of cards here. 3 cards to be exact if they want. Between 3 cards and a Bomble and a Mystic Forge, this probably means that we don't have game. I mean, we haven't had game for a couple turns. But I'm just waiting for a spell that actually wins. All right, they're tapping for a PO. Let's just concede. So yeah, I have Mind Break Traps, and I have a 4th Null Rod, and that's about it. So our mulligans have to be very hard for Null Rod. It's about the only way we can play the game. I do, of course, I don't really like spheres very much, but on the play, maybe it's just fine. Chalice, sure. I just think I'll just take out these Stone Coils. Needle on the One Ring looks pretty reasonable, though. Yeah, I might go like this. And then on the draw, we'll take out the spheres and we'll play more threats. So this has a Mind Break Trap and a Null Rod, but no mana to cast any of it, or no mana to cast any of my spells, so I have to mulligan. This hand has a Null Rod, but only 1 mana, so I have to mulligan. I don't... I'm dying! I don't know. Okay. I mean, I've had Null Rod openers. Okay, here's a Null Rod opener. Boom. I have a Null Rod opener, and I have Workshop Strip Mine, so... yeah. Now, do they have a force, or do they not have a force? Find out. I have to lead Null Rod. If I don't read Null Rod, I have a chance of dying. Pretty reasonable. So we can play a Null Rod and see what they've got going for us. It might be enough that we have a Strip Mine loop and a Null Rod here. This is about the only way we can win the matchup, so... so if they've drawn a force, we don't want to show them the Strip Mine before we show them the Crucible. So we'll just start with the Crucible. And then we'll Strip Mine. And so now we have a Wasteland lock and a Null Rod lock. I can't imagine my opponent can really get out of that. They could theoretically play a bunch of Moxen and then play a Tolarian Academy, do a bounce, something like that. But we can pressure them here with a Nettle Cyst. Metamorph as a Crucible. Ah, very nice. Very nice. Metamorph as a Crucible. Yeah, I mean, we're still going to try to tempo them out of this game with Strip Mines every turn and play this Nettle Cyst and attack. That's our plan, so... Metamorph as a Crucible is pretty sick, though. I didn't really consider that. Metamorph is a sweet card. So they are stopping us from advancing mana, but we already have a workshop, so we should be fine. Interesting that they're choosing to use this land. Don't know what that does. Strip mine this. Play a Lotus. Play a Needle. I guess this is going to name the One Ring anyways. Because I don't want to name Strip Mine, that's for sure. And then this is only a couple attacks to win the game, so I think we're fine. That's it's actually a really good example of why cards like Nettlecyst and Patchwork Automaton are in the deck. Because you have this great lock, but you do need to finish the game. And it does a really good job of doing that. I'd love to play this Golos, but I'm pretty sure continually playing Strip Mine is just more likely to win me the game. Where if I play this Golos out, I can just see ways in which my opponent does something bad to me. Let's just keep the opponent locked out of mana, and we're going to win that way. So we got Strip Mine, we have a Wasteland, then we have an attack, and then we're looking at 3 attacks to win, 2 more attacks after this one. If my opponent gets out of this game somehow, I'll be pretty surprised, and I'll be pretty sad. No, I didn't think so. Crucible, Wasteland Lock, very strong. So, game 2, or game 3 on the draw, we're definitely going to take out all of these sphere effects. We're going to bring in some more of the threats. I don't think spheres are... I just don't think spheres are very good against my opponent's deck, the way they're putting mana in play. We have to hope they don't kill us on turn 1 and then try to resolve a null rod on turn 2. Turn sphere is really bad as well. We don't really have enough cards to make this worth it. I still think the Vexing Bauble makes sense, and the Chalice doesn't really make sense, so I'll play another creature. I have very little hopes of winning the game when we're on the draw, but stranger things have happened. This hand has only creature threats, and we cannot keep it. We need to find a hand that has a Null Rod, and preferably a Null Rod and a Mindbreak Trap. Wow, okay, so this is one of our best possibles. Definitely a keep. Let's put away this Stonecoil Serpent. Mystic Forge is a little risky because my opponent can copy Mystic Forge, but 1, 2. My Mindbreak Trap was not turned on. Crucible. Yeah, I think we simply need to play the Null Rod. Oh, they had the Force, so now we're in trouble. Opponent has a Mystic Forge. We don't have a Null Rod anymore. Could go really badly. See what happens. Furl. Or Mana Ring? The Mindbreak Trap didn't do anything. Classic workshop hand. Mindbreak Trap just didn't do anything. All right, well, we've got our own Mystic Forge, I guess. I don't think that's as good as theirs, unfortunately. I don't want a Patchwork Automaton. Looks like Mox is what I'd want. Well, it's a land, so... Yeah, our Mindbreak Trap didn't hit, and our Null Rod got forced. This is just what happens when you try to play Workshop with no forces versus Workshop with forces. Even if they don't have a lot of blue cards in their deck, still having forces is better than not having forces. It's so much. It's so much cards. I mean, if we hit a Null Rod, I think our game is still on. But oh, never mind, because my opponent has another force. Imagine choosing to register a deck that just simply had no forces. That would be crazy. Who would really do that? 1, 2. I only have 5 mana, so I can't get Latticed here. They got a Lattice anyways. All right, well, a Null Rod off the top still provides me with stuff that's happening. I can find a null rod by just playing off the top with Forge, but there's my things are null rotted because of this Karn, so I need a null rod below this guy. I have a wasteland. All right. Well, I guess technically they can just stand up. Okay, I'm dead. Wow. Yeah, I mean, I didn't think this matchup would go very well, and it didn't. Okay, fifth and final round of this Vintage League. We are up against a Lurrus for the first time in 5 rounds. Maybe that's enough for us to get through. I'm going to keep this one against Lurrus. Against another deck, maybe I wouldn't, but with Lurrus, we've got, Bobble, turn off their forces, start pushing through some spells. Maybe we have a shot here. It has been a rough league, as you probably know if you made it this far in the video. It's, I don't know. I definitely haven't played perfect, of course. Never play perfect, but we have been bullied pretty hard. I don't know about this resurgence of Sphere Shop. I mean, if they play a turn 1 Frog, like, where there's just no chance, right? Like, we just straight up... No. I mean, I guess I can play a turn 1 Stonecoil and hope they have no removal, right? Like... I do think that we made a major mistake in not winning the die roll. Winning the die roll seems like it would be an important part of winning with shops. Did I win any? I don't think I won any, right? I lost all of them. I don't think I had a single one. All right, so if my opponent has no Fatal Push, this Stonecoil Serpent theoretically blocks this Psychic Frog forever, as I have Reach and Pro Multicolor. So that's something we have going for us. That is nature working as intended. There's a Wasteland on our workshop. Goodbye, workshop. 3 cards in my opponent's hand. We're stopping the Psychic Frog right now, right? Right? Surely. And I made it a 2/2, so it doesn't die to a Fatal Push. All right, they put a Lurrus back in their hand. Now we can Wasteland them, and maybe we're at a spot where we're actually okay. Hold on. I'm seeing the vision. The vision is coming to me. Let's take away their Underground Sea. Again, they can't attack me because I have the all-powerful Stonecoil Serpent. Oh. Uh-oh. 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 Oh, another frog. Okay, I see. That's a problem, because they can get bigger on both frogs, and then they can start drawing cards again. That is a big problem. That is a huge problem. I see the issue now. How do I come back from this? So as long as they pitch frogs, I need to get bigger creatures. Oh no. It's all falling apart. I can't even wasteland them and get ahead anymore, so I think the answer is simply we get the sphere resolved and start building out our mana. 2 frogs? No! Things are bad. Things are certainly bad. Wow, they're white mana too, so they have swords. Yep, they come crashing in. Uh-oh. The whole thing is falling apart. If it was just a turn 1 frog, I think we actually were okay. But now... They had 3 frogs! They discarded a frog! That's too funny. Right, we can't really crack this bauble, or else we expose ourselves to Bowmaster. If we start wastelanding them, it's at least something. I guess this can get countered now, though. I feel like we have to do it anyways. Oh, I can't, because it costs 4! Yeah. It's actually really awkward for us. I can't play anything, because it all costs 4. Alright, well, in that case, I think we're supposed to play a Nettle Cyst out. At least that means they have to jump their frogs. I don't think I'm allowed to do any attacking or anything. Make them do some jumping. For 4 mana, my opponent can play a Lurrus, but they can't really buy back a Petal yet. So they can buy back a Frog later. I don't think this game stalling out is good for me. My opponent has drawn a lot of lands, which has been very good against my Wasteland. I think we're a little bit too far past Crucible Strip Mine, but maybe we can still get a Crucible Strip Mine going in this game. Not sure. Force of Will is turned back on because I played a Sphere Resistance through my Bauble. But I couldn't really crack my Bauble because if I got my Stonequest Bow mastered, it would have been bad. My opponent can just hop both frogs if they want, and then I block one and they have to pitch one, but it's not that big a deal for them. I at least guess I can swing back pretty hard on the follow-up. They could, of course, play a Lurrus this turn, and then next turn they could start buying back frogs. That's problematic as well. I do have a Strip Mine for an Underground Sea, though. That could do something here. At least at the very least, we're gonna get a round 5 matchup versus the matchup that's supposed to be good, and we can see how it plays out. We can see, you know, what's going on here. We got a little lucky that our opponent didn't draw Swords to Plowshares or Fatal Push early on the Stonecoil Serpent. It did hold down the ground for a little while, stemmed the bleeding basically, but then once they had the second frog, things got challenging. They didn't want to jump any frogs here. And they are tapped out, so that means my 2 spells are going to resolve. I think what that means is I'm going to go... I'd like to resolve Crucible... How much mana do I have? 7? That's an awkward amount of mana. So maybe I don't Strip Mine and let them rebuy a frog and just play... I don't think this Trinisphere is worth that much. So I think instead I'm just going to go with Crucible and Strip Mine this Black Source, or Wasteland Black Source. I think that makes the most sense. The Lowstone will be good, but I think resolving the Crucible now while my opponent is tapped out and can't cast a force through the sphere is going to make the most sense. So let's get the Crucible resolved. They shouldn't be able to deal with the Crucible in the main unless they have like a Seal of Cleansing or something. And this can maybe keep them off of rebuying a Psychic Frog, though they can actually rebuy this Lotus Petal to play Frog later because they can play it through through Bauble with Sphere. Again, I think I have to hold the line here. These attacks no longer look very good. But I do have Crucible Wasteland now. So if I can keep my opponent off of mana, maybe resolve a Null Rod further down the line, then my creatures board might be good enough. Time Walk. I assume they're going to do some hopping then. But again, it's not great for them. But they can draw 2 cards here. They hop this guy, they hop this guy. I block, they pitch a card. They have enough cards in their yard to start hopping like crazy, so they don't have that many to do it every turn though, because they have to hop both, or my Stonecoil blocks until they find a Swords. Once they Swords my Stonecoil, this whole thing does fall apart. But yeah, I could have theoretically maybe equipped to the Stonecoil, but that doesn't seem very good. I feel like I need to have multiple cards in play. They pitched a main deck Mindbreak Trap. Very interesting. I haven't seen that before. They draw a card. And they go to their next turn here. So they didn't end up playing anything out of their yard. So that does mean they can't play this Frog unless they draw another Black Source. And they didn't draw a Black Source that turn, so... Everything I play gives me additional mana for Tolarian Academy. And it's not like the Tolarian Academy can go away, because I do have the Crucible. So I'll always have mana supremacy in this game, but will it be enough? If my opponent is drawing cards and playing frogs and has a Lurrus, it might not be. At some point, we can crack this Bauble, though. So they're going to play the Lotus Petal out of the yard. They can't get in this turn. They don't have enough cards. They drew a Swords? No? Is it Lavinia? It's got to be a Lavinia, right? Oh, it is. They drew Swords. Wow. That is extremely, extremely bad for me. The last turn, we really needed them not to draw Swords, and they drew Swords. 2 cards in my opponent's hand, so I can't even block either of these. Okay, so now I think we're just losing. I thought this could happen basically at any point, but they took 19 cards deep to find the first sword. So yeah, so I can't block any of these. They draw 2 cards. We are very, very, very in trouble now. I was hoping we could, stem the bleeding, but they had just enough. Automaton. So yeah, we have a automaton and a lodestone. Let's play this wasteland first in case we get dazed. We have an automaton and we have a lodestone. My attack is like not great, but maybe I just need to get in for 6. I could not wasteland them and instead just draw with Bauble now. That might be better because what am I really preventing with this wasteland anymore? Not much. All right, drew another wasteland. So I got a hit in, but these frogs are going to start threatening lethal very quickly. Now they have Lurrus bounce as well. They just drew another swords. Okay, well. Yeah, I can't block either of these. I don't think I have counterplay. One drew 3 frogs, and I drew 1. I mean, they've drawn 10 more cards than me. Let's be real here. But I only have 1 Stonecoil Serpent. It's not going to get the job done. So I could see the vision there. I think everyone could see the vision there. The Stonecoil Serpent, without removal affecting it, was doing a really good job of making sure Frog didn't take over the game. The problem is they had 2 frogs, and then they had removal. And then they had Lurrus, and then they have 3 frogs, and now they have infinite cards over me, and I can't come back. Again, this is another game where simply winning the die roll would have been extremely good for us. Being able to resolve a Flexing Bauble on turn 1 would have stopped my opponent from being able to play their Moxen. They'd be super behind on turns. They probably would have gotten Wasteland Lock. I think there were maybe of the 5 opening games that we played, and none of them were on the play, right? We might have won most of them on the play. So something to think about. Very, obviously being on the play is extremely powerful no matter what deck you play in Vintage. Being on the play is certainly going to improve your chances of winning. But when you play a deck like Sphere Shops where you don't have forces, being on the play is crucial. So I'm kind of past the point where Chalice on 1 would be like Chalice on 1 early in this game might have been a lock, might have been good enough to win. Chalice on 1 at this point in the game is probably just not good enough. I mean, I'm gonna make a big Nettlecyst and attack with it and see how that goes. So I'm gonna play this Chalice on 1. Can I threaten lethal attack here? I'm gonna play this Trinisphere. This is 6-10. It's 1 short of a lethal attack here. If they force this, it's still gonna be 1 short because this won't get pumped. Okay, so they did have force. I'm surprised they forced the Trinisphere, but they didn't want to force this Chalice. I am just going to Wasteland and Wasteland And then I don't have... If I had a lethal attack, I would attack all, but I don't have a lethal attack, so I am just going to attack with the Germ token. And I'm not dead on the swing back, so... But at any point, they can stop attacking with frogs and just leave one back and make it big or something. 3 mana. Orcish Bowmaster. Well, that makes my attacks really bad because they can loop Bowmasters every turn and block multiple times. So now I kind of need another Stone Coil Serpent that can trample over. These things are still getting pumped to 4/5s, so I can't actually block any of them. This would be a kind of an interesting spot if I had a Walking Ballista in my deck. I don't know. I don't know. It just was... I was just a tempo behind, right? If I could have gotten ahead on tempo in this game, I feel like there were very real chances of winning. Wonder if I missed any attacks along the way. Certainly possible. I'm at 11. My opponent has 4 cards in hand. It's not like they don't have mana. If I had a Null Rod, I'd stop them from having mana for a little bit, maybe, but I don't think that's what we want to draw at this point in the game. Urza's Saga is just a bit too late, and now we don't have any attacks, really. Yeah, this game is lost, unfortunately. Sad. Very sad. All right, they are Esper, so that means they have a better matchup against us than Blue-Black would. I don't really like the idea of Null Rods, but maybe you are supposed to. I really don't think the Null Rods are what I want. The problem is the Worm Coils are not what I want either, because the Worm Coils get swords. Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is just take the Null Rods out for more threats, but leave this as it is. I'll try it like this. Could be approaching some of these matchup boards incorrectly. There could be like different paths you take to maybe try to like... I don't know. I don't really know. All right, we get to be on the play this time, so that's always nice. See what happens. So we're looking for a nice lockout pieces, some early tempo. See what we can find. What can I put together? Something like Workshop, Moxen, Patchwork, Spheres, just like a nice, simple, reasonable draw. Let's see. Opponent looks like they're lagging at the moment. They haven't revealed their Lurrus yet. Gonna just stop and I'll be back when they come back. All right, here we go. I got a very reasonable opener. No threats, unfortunately, but still a very reasonable opener with wastelands and stuff. I can cash in baubles later, so I'm going to go with a Soul Ring. And then I'm going to go with a bauble. And then I'm going to go with a Thorn of Amethyst. Using the artifact mana, which is going to make the Thorn resolve, and then I'm going to crack the bauble. Okay, so we have our plan. We've got some spheres in the ready. Let's see what this can put together. Hopefully my opponent doesn't have a... Oh, they're going to try to stop us on mana. That's not going to work for our hand here. I am just going to go... That for 1 mana is free, or it's just net 0. And then I'll use the Strip Mine to hold on to this big mana, and I'll get a Sphere in play as well. So now they cost 2 to do most spells. So we've got the, the lock assembled here. Now we need a piece of threat. We don't actually have a threat. Our opponent has conceded before then. And this is a good reason why they shouldn't. We wouldn't have a threat for another 2 turns. But then once we have that, we do have double Patchwork. Maybe it's enough. But that was a great example of being on the play and doing what this deck does. On the draw, it's going to be tough, but give it a shot. Let's see. Will being on the draw be our detriment? Our reason we are unsuccessful in finding any wins? It's certainly possible. I should probably concede anyways, considering I can't prize. This is a totally reasonable hand against Lurrus. I got a bunch of threats that we can play. I am scared of a Vexing Bauble, which is pretty funny, but I don't think Esper usually plays the Vexing Bauble. Opponent led with basic Island Brainstorm, and we have a Strip Mine in our opening hand. That's something to consider as well here. Very interesting sequence. I don't want to use the Strip Mine, but I might. We lose out on a Patchwork trigger, but yeah, I'm gonna Strip Mine this. I'm gonna hold this third Mox in case I draw another Patchwork. I Strip Mine first because I didn't want to get dazed. Looks like I got my Patchwork forced. I probably am supposed to play the Sapphire now so I don't get like Lavinia'd. If they randomly draw a Mox in and play Lavinia here, that would be kind of an issue. So I probably was supposed to play... Oh, I mean, I still am holding for another Patchwork if I draw Patchwork, so... But if I don't draw Patchwork here, then I'm just going to play the Sapphire and play big... Sure. I mean, I feel like I have to just hope they don't have it here. I feel like tempo-wise... I just need to make... Hey, we got a win! Yay! I have a nice Strip Mine lock. All right. So we did get a win there to go 1-4. I was gonna concede, but I did not tell my opponent not to concede, and they conceded a lot faster than I thought they would. So unfortunately, I did not get to do that. We got to play against... What did we play against? We played against Oath, which is a non-meta choice that is a horrible matchup. We played against Initiative, which is a meta choice that is a horrible matchup. We played against Countervine, which is an off-meta choice, which is a great matchup and lost anyways. And then we played against Jewel, which is an on-meta choice that is a horrible matchup. And we played against Lurrus, which is an on-meta choice that was a good matchup. So we had, a little bit of here, a little bit of there. We definitely did not win a lot of die rolls, so that did put us in a hard spot. You can see the difference that this deck has an incredible play-draw difference. Because if you get to be on the play and you're the one resolving your lock pieces on turn 1, it can really give you a bunch of free wins. And that's what's one of the things that you actually get from this deck is you do get a bunch of free wins on the power of Mishra's Workshop on the play with lock pieces. You also get a lot of free losses because your deck does not have Force of Will on the draw. So your opponent just goes, oops, my combo is here, you are dead. Or not even combo, oops, I played a turn 1 Seasoned Engineer, you're dead. And that's, that's part of the problem here. So we did see a nice win against Lurrus and some losses against what things we would expect to lose to. Overall, I wasn't really seeing any differences on how this deck plays now compared to how this deck plays before. So if there's any reason for a Sphere Shop's resurgence or win rate resurgence, it's entirely based on matchups. If you can play this deck, win a bunch of die rolls, play against a bunch of Lurrus, I can see you top 8ing a tournament. If you play against Lurrus for 6 straight rounds, you might have a good shot with this deck. It might be one of the better decks you can choose to play against Lurrus. But if you ever run into an Initiative, a Jewel Shops, it's just going to be a problem. This is going to be a big problem. And you can't take very many losses if you want to top 8 a tournament. You can usually only take one loss. Sometimes you can sneak a second loss in, but most of the time you can only afford to give away one. And if you're giving away one every time you find a jewel or initiative opponent, man, I just can't expect that this is a very valid choice. That being said, you need to be on the lookout for this deck, and you need to maybe make some sideboard adjustments because it did perform extremely well. 58% win rate as the 4th most played deck. That's a very high number, and it's something that people are going to have an eye on moving into the next week of competition. So adjust your sideboards accordingly, get your Hercules recalls and energy fluxes back around until Sphere Shops gets smushed down again. Thanks for watching more vintage content like this on my YouTube channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll see you then.